All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending this afternoon's webinar. Again, this will be an introduction of the AkkenCloud integration with Sense. I want to let you know we will be recording this session. It will be available in the Help Center and by email after the session today. Also, we will be having a Q&A. There is a chat at the bottom of your Zoom meeting that is going to allow you to ask questions. We will address as many of those as we can during the session, and afterwards we will be hopefully able to get through that list of questions that you have and answer anything that you may need to know that comes up during this session. I want to thank everyone, obviously, for taking the time out to join us this afternoon. And I want to just introduce Akken first. So as most of you know who are Akken clients, our mission since 2005 has been to provide technology that simplifies running a staffing and recruiting agency. Now, my name is John Duras. I've worked with many of you over the years. I've been with Akken for about 10 years, and I do come from the staffing and recruiting industry. And a big part of my efforts here, as well as the company efforts, is really to providing a front, middle, and back office solution to run every aspect of an enterprise, of a staffing and recruiting company. Those efforts include being the system of record, everything on front office, from sourcing, from the job workflows, over to middle office regarding onboarding, employee management, being a true system of engagement to our clients, and back office from invoicing and payroll. A big part of this system of intelligence, being able to report on every aspect of your business with a 360-degree view of all of the areas of your business, and back to the system of engagement. That's a big piece of what we're talking about today, because I have the pleasure of introducing this afternoon the Sense team. As part of Akken's efforts, we obviously like to integrate with the best of breeds, and today's new partner that I'm introducing definitely qualifies as one of those. I would first like to introduce Jason Jakes. He's the Senior Director of Solutions Consulting at Sense.
Nice to talk to everyone. Excited everyone's here for us to show you what Sense can do as an engagement platform. And I've been in the industry for about 20 years at this point, and happy to act as a solution consultant and show you around the product and answer any technical questions you have along the way. So don't be bashful. Please, we want to make this as interactive as possible. Please put your questions in the chat and we'll try and get to them during the demonstration.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. And also the co-founder of Sense, who's going to be going through a large portion of the webinar this afternoon, Pankaj Jindal.
John, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you everyone for taking the time this afternoon to spend this hour with us. My name is Pankaj. Like John said, I'm one of the founders of Sense. Started the company about 6 years ago, but before that I ran staffing firms for about 15 years as a very hands-on operator. So I very much come from your world. I very much come from the industry, and really hoping that the conversation we have today can be super interactive. No question is off the table. So as deep as you might want to get, just get your questions in the Q&A box and we'll get to as many of them as possible. And if you wouldn't mind with that, I'll take this over and get started and just talk a little bit about the Sense platform and the history of our company itself, for those of you who are not familiar with Sense. Like I said, we started the company a little over 6 years ago. Our mission at the time was to build the first ever engagement platform that was designed specifically for the staffing industry. We've stayed very true to that mission. We today work with over 650 customers, every single one of which is a staffing company. We also did a lot of heavy lifting right up front, where we built in a lot of integrations, middleware, plumbing, and open API, so on and so forth, so we can actually integrate with various different data sources. And that proof is now in the pudding. We have 6 of the top 10 largest staffing companies in the world that use Sense today. These are obviously companies you've heard of, over 10, 15, $20 billion in revenue. But more importantly, also more than a third of the largest staffing companies in the US. These are companies as recognized by SIA, Staffing Industry Analysts, as firms with over $100 million in revenue. Over a third of them are currently live on Sense. We're also SOC 2 Type 2 certified, which is a rarity for a company of our size and tells you how seriously we take our customers' data. Along this journey, we've raised about $90 million in capital from some of the best investors you can hope to have on your roster, including Axel, Google Ventures, and SoftBank. Now, when we started Sense, the big sort of pillars that we wanted the platform to stand on were growth, retention, and automation. The idea behind growth is, how do we increase top of the funnel for you? How do we pump life back into your database, the hundreds of thousands of millions of candidates that you have sitting in there? How do we have more people who apply to you quickly get into the submission process? How do we essentially help you make more placements and directly impact your top line, your revenue number? Growth is all about retention. How do we help you have your people, your billable associates, billable contractors stay on assignment with you longer than they stay today? Have them be more loyal, have them get redeployed so they can do more than one assignment with you at a time, and essentially bring down your cost per hire and have a direct impact on your bottom line. So growth's top line, retention's bottom line, and then automation is all about operational efficiencies. How can we take the busy work out of your recruiter's day, give them 30, 40, 50, in some cases 60, 70% of time back, so they can dedicate that to more revenue generating activities, and in turn, more compensation and commission for them. So that's essentially the holistic overview on the company itself. Now, we're super excited about our partnership with Akken. What we're going to go today is essentially talk about a bunch of the features, a bunch of the solutions that Sense has in the market that are available with Akken, and some that are going to be released shortly. The idea with this webinar today is to make sure that all of you are aware of at least 80 to 90% of the capabilities that Sense has today. We probably won't be able to go through every single thing, but it gives you a sense of what you would be able to do with our platform here in the near future. Now, before I go there, let me sort of revert back to first principles and talk about, why did we even build Sense in the first place, and what are some of the challenges that we were trying to solve? And this slide, I think, encapsulates a lot of those challenges. And hopefully a lot of you on this call will agree with me as I go through them. And hopefully a lot of these are what you see within your firms as well. So first of all is just a high leakage through the candidate funnel, through the candidate pipeline. There is just a very high drop off. We oftentimes come across customers that start with thousands of candidates in the top of the funnel. Less than 10% of them get submitted. A far shorter percentage of them actually get interviewed, and then even fewer of them get hired. So you might start with 100 people at the top of the funnel, but only one person actually gets hired. So one, how do we stop wasting time on the another 99? And two, if there were people in that pipe that were helpful for other positions, that were useful as candidates elsewhere, how do we capture that before they leave your system? So that's something we'll talk about. The second and the most sort of costly mistake we make in the staffing industry is just a stale, underused database. I am pretty confident that most of you have over 100,000 people in your database. We work with customers today that have even 10 million, 15 million. So these are all people that are sitting in your database. You've probably been paying a job board tens of thousands of dollars for a number of years. And if you think about it, you've probably spent $500,000 to $1 million in the last 10, 15, 20 years that your company has been around to gather these folks. However, your recruiters today probably still don't go to your ATS to recruit. They probably still go to the job board first. And partly the reason that happens is because nobody believes that this data is up to date. Nobody believes that this data is current, it's hygienic, it's sanitized, and so they look elsewhere, which basically costs you more and more money. So we'll also talk about how you can always keep your database in the most current and the most sanitized shape possible, so that you can change behavior and make that the first source of truth that everybody goes to. The third, and I guess the biggest issue in our industry, is redeployment. More than 90% of the people who start working for you as temporary employees or contractors, they only do a single assignment with you. They come in, they do their assignment. You're lucky if they don't leave their assignment before the end date. and then don't work with you again, or at least don't work with you again right away. So we'll also talk about how AI and automation can help you retain these folks, automatically match them to new jobs, and essentially increase your redeployment percentages. This is a place where Sense has a deep impact almost right away. We've changed redeployment percentages with our customers that were in the low single digits to 20-30% very, very quickly. And then lastly, as a business owner, this is very close to my heart, this idea of recruiters wasting time. Some of our customers have now done time studies. So what a time study means is they'll take a group of recruiters, they'll study what they do 8 hours a day for 30 days in a row. So they're actually monitoring everything that these people are doing. Obviously, they let them know that they will be doing this. And the intent here is not to see if you're browsing the internet or shopping while you are at work. The intent is to find out where exactly does your time go. And then they'll put them in different buckets and find out that 60 to 70% of a recruiter's time is spent in prospecting, screening candidates, scheduling interviews with them, potentially rescheduling them if somebody is unavailable before they can get to a point that they can move into an offer stage. We'll talk about how you can take this 60 to 70% of their life and automate most of that using a natural language-based chatbot. So to me, if something could come in and help in a great extent with all 4 of these problem statements, that would almost be a panacea on what we want in the staffing industry today. And that's what we'll talk about. The other problem is just the technology and the tech stack itself. This is very, very representative of what we see at our other customers. Several of you who are on the call today, you probably have something you use today to do text messaging. You probably have something by which you do a survey. You probably have a way to do mass emails or a lightweight sort of marketing automation to your candidates. You probably have a way to do an NPS survey. You probably gather referrals. But chances are that you do this using 5, 6, 7, in some cases, even 10 different point solutions. That's 10 different companies that don't talk to each other, 10 different contracts, 10 different pricing models, 10 different customer success teams. And obviously, I am guessing half of these 10 things won't even integrate with your ATS. Now with Sense, you can do all of this with one single platform. Every single thing that you see written here is enabled by Sense. And that's the world that we had imagined when we started our company, that you will always have a system of record. In your case, that system of record is AkkenCloud. And all you're going to need is a system of engagement that can sit on top of this and bi-directionally talk to your system of record. And that's exactly what we've built. So without further ado, I'm going to start getting into some of the pieces of this system of engagement, and also try and tell you about why we thought AI and automation, solve all of these problems. So I'll leave you with this, this view of how we think about the world. You're obviously collecting many different kinds of data, who's being submitted, who's being interviewed. Are you talking to these people once they're on assignment? What are they saying? What's their performance looking like? So on and so forth. Each one of this is information that Sense can consume. And once we consume that information, you'll be able to view that and a bunch of analytics using our products. So with that, let's start getting into the first way on how we can start automating some of these problem statements for you. So first things first, Sense has a 2-way text messaging platform. We call it Sense Messaging. It's, I would say, leaps and bounds ahead of any messaging platform that you see in the industry today, if there is anything at all that you are using. We're going to show you how you can do one-on-one messaging with candidates. Obviously, you've all heard the stats. People read their text messages in under 5 minutes. 97% of all text messages are read. 50% of all text messages are responded to. So unlike the dismal response rate that you get from an email, you get very high engagement with text messages. So we're going to show you how to do text messaging one-on-one, how to do it one-to-many. You can send the same message to 100 people, 200 people at the same time. However, they're all personalized to the end user. The message is coming as a one-on-one message, but your recruiter was able to send it out like that. And all the responses become a singular thread. If you are in an environment where you have multiple offices, or if recruiters share the same positions, hey, we're trying to hire 20 people who look like the same exact thing, and 5 recruiters are working on it, you can also take advantage of a shared inbox. We also have some features around, automated replies or text message signatures, so on and so forth. And more importantly, we've also added intelligence into our text messaging. So for instance, if you had a candidate who was on assignment and they were finishing their assignment in 30 days, you will automatically get an intelligent suggestion that will say, hey, John here is about to finish his assignment in 30 days. Do you want to send him a text message? Or Stephanie here, you have not reached out to her in 90 days. Maybe send a text message and say hi. So you'll see all of that within the product. But most importantly, all of this information gets written back into your AkkenCloud platform. So all of your IP stays secure with you. If any of your recruiters were to leave the company, they don't get to take all of these relationships and candidate names with them. It's all written into your system of record. So this is where we'll start. I'm going to pass this back on to Jason to start showing you what this platform looks like. Please feel free to ask as many questions as you like along the way. And while Jason is demonstrating the product, I am more than happy to answer questions in the Q&A panel. So if you use something today and you want to compare and contrast it with Sense, or if you've never used something and you have questions around that, please keep asking that. And the way we'll do back and forth is, once Jason shows you this product, I'll talk to you about other things that Sense can do, and then Jason will show you those as well. So we'll do a little back and forth starting here. And with that, Jason, I will send this back to you.
All right, thanks, Pankaj. And I'm going to share my screen. So you should be seeing Sense at this point. And where we've landed here is actually going to be more relevant in the next modules we go through from the automation and chatbot standpoint. But where we're going to start is in AkkenCloud. So as I come into Akken, the first area I'm going to go is into the CRM and into the candidates section, where we can see our list of people, and I can run a search and get to the people I want to see. But if I wanted to go ahead and, we'll start with the most common use case scenario is mass texting people. So I can have my list there, and I'm going to bring up Sense messaging. And as I go through, I'm actually going to just go ahead and click new message, and I'm going to grab the numbers from the screen. So it's going to be that easy to go ahead and add all of them to one message at the same time. And as I do so, I see one of these shows up in red, so I can remove the landline numbers and then go ahead and start that message. With Sense, I can obviously write something from scratch and then insert variables like first name, so it's very personalized. Then, because I don't like to write stuff from scratch, especially during demonstration, I might use a template. So in this case, I'm going to use my personal template. You can see that was named New Opportunity Jason, because I actually also have a scheduling link in here, and that's linked to my calendar, so that when people click that, they can view availability and go ahead and book time with me. But you can also see that we do have variables merge in here. We make it super easy, and you can just send away. Or if you're working late and you don't want to bother people late at night, you want to schedule it for the morning, you certainly can do that here also. So creating mass text directly out of AkkenCloud, super simple. Where I'm going to go next actually is, what some of these conversations look like. And I'm just actually switching to a different user because I have a kind of a pre-written or pre-configured conversation that makes a lot of sense as opposed to my demonstration person, which I send a lot of the same things to. But in this case, what we have is really the beginning of why Sense messaging is better than the other products out in the market. And the reason for that is the context, the collaboration, the integration between the systems. So in this case, you can see the first couple items here, they're not texts, but they're actually information from AkkenCloud that this person interviewed, or this person started an assignment or ended an assignment. And then we also have other visibility. So some organizations have shared text lines. So they have, maybe a branch or branch structure where they have at each branch, they have maybe 4 recruiters managing one texting line. we absolutely support that. I'll show that to you in a second. But also some, especially in the professional world, will have one line per recruiter. And it's really important that if I'm messaging Kiz, in this case, or I'm messaging Jim Hopper, that if someone else is messaging Jim from a different number, I have context to that. So I can certainly see that here. And if I want to view the conversation, I can just click on it. But then comes the texting. So in this case, the purple is a mass text. So I went ahead and I sent something out to those 50, 100 people that we were just looking at. And I can see the exact singular message that person received, because everyone does get a singular message. It's not a group message. And then as I continue down, you can see that, in this case, Jim replied, just schedule some time with me. But then we have some green bubbles. So purple is mass texting. Green is actually automation. And that kind of bleeds into what we're going to talk about next. But in this case, it was an automated text sent on my behalf from my number. And this really goes really far into creating that great white glove candidate experience, keeping them up to date, keeping in touch with them. And the recruiter doesn't need to worry about it because it's automated. And then as I scroll further down, you can see some more interactions. And of course, we're going to support images, we're going to support files, emojis, all as part of this conversation. And then you can see the blue bubble. That's actually me manually responding to someone. So there's the mass text, there's the automation, and then there's the manual interaction. And a lot of times the manual interaction will happen, as a follow-up to the automation. So the automation happens, and then the candidate replies, and then you pick the conversation up manually. So that's just a little bit about the consumption of it. And the other thing, if I pull this out even further, you can also see if there is anything scheduled for that person. So we have over here the way to filter. So, show me everything that hasn't happened, or sorry, everyone I haven't replied to, or, in this case, starred. And you can also create conversation associations. So you can assign conversations to people. So there's a lot of good functionality as far as collaboration going. But going back to what I was saying before about the shared lines, if I go into a shared line, and you can see here, this is a conversation with Kiz Richardson. And rather than, the different people being tied to different lines, in this case, all the different people are interacting from the same line. So that way, if we're interacting, we can see in this case, Brad Cox was responding to the candidate. Then we have Jenna, then we have myself. And you can see there are little emojis there as well. So it makes it really easy to consume from this end, who's having that portion of the conversation with that candidate. And then over here, all the way to the right, is where I was saying that if there is new activity and new things scheduled from automation, which, like I said, eventually we'll get to, we would be able to see that here. So we're really trying to give people a really 365 or 360 degree view on everything that's going on, both in AkkenCloud and then potentially with other aspects of what Sense does. And that's really where it becomes key to, having all of these systems, under one umbrella rather than separate vendors. And as I go back, I will just go back to my regular person and go back to Kiz. And a couple last things here. I just want to hit the high notes. There's a lot more functionality here and a lot more settings and configurations that can go on. But if I mark this as on red, the thing, you might have heard that little tone there. Just like on your phone, you're going to get the notifications, you're going to get a tone. And then in addition, if someone is away from their desk, they'll have this Sense mobile app. So they can come in and they can immediately see exactly what's going on and see that same visibility and be able to respond even if they're out to lunch. So we want to make life easy. We want to make life easily understandable for the recruiter and try and give them a full view of what's going on. So on that, I actually am going to hand it back to Pankaj to talk a little bit more about automation.
Thanks, Jason. So, what you've just seen is obviously many different ways in which you can send out text messages. But let's also show you how the text messaging can be super integrated with automated journeys. Journeys is just our terminology for a number of events that happen in a cadence. Think of onboarding somebody, there might be 15 steps. Think of somebody starts on an assignment and you want to talk to them on day 1, day 7, day 30. You might want to have them do an NPS survey. Think of somebody coming out of assignment and you want to do an exit survey. You want to send them new jobs that they can probably apply to before they leave your company. So every process in your company that is a repetitive process that a single recruiter is today doing more than 5 times, you should be thinking about automating that. We have customers today who will create dozens such journeys, and they've literally automated 70 to 80% of their busy work. So this slide doesn't talk about that so much, but as we go into the demonstration, you're going to see that your entire recruiting process, from saying hello to a candidate for the very first time to walking them through a submission process, an interview process, taking care of them while they're on assignment, redeploying them, or if you're unable to redeploying them, just putting them in a nurture campaign because you still want to stay in touch with them as they become your alumni, can all be automated using journeys. And then very elegantly, you'll see how these journeys also correlate with sense messaging that we showed you already. So we'll get back into the product and show you a little bit more of that.
All right, thanks for that quick introduction. And one thing I forgot to point out, so I'm just going to go back just for a second to messaging, is, when we're interacting from a messaging perspective, one of the things that also is very relevant here, and I just went into Kiz Richardson's profile, is we're logging that also in AkkenCloud. So you're going to be able to see, over on the right where there's the activity, you can expand that and then see that conversation back and forth. So just know that everything that's happening through Sense is also going to be recorded in AkkenCloud. And then as we expand our capabilities into this automation, into chatbot, those notes and content will also be logged within Akken. Now, where I'm going to jump into is back where we started. And we're going to come into this interface. And you can think of this interface as the, essentially operations and marketing portal and interface to go ahead and create, modify, and maintain, manage any of these automations. And the reason why it's only for marketing operations is because the recruiters and the salespeople, they don't need to be in here, right? The idea of this is to lighten their burden. So what Sense is doing is we're listening for the activity or inactivity within AkkenCloud, and then we'll take action appropriately. Now, where I'm going to go first is into journeys. And here in journeys, that's our nomenclature for it. You can think of them like campaigns or workflows. But what we have here is a pretty good set of examples of, how we're helping staffing companies from the beginning of the process or the beginning of the life cycle all the way to the end. And that goes from, as you can see here, cold marketing going out to, organizations, lead nurturing of those sales contacts, or reverse marketing. So we're helping with the sales side too, and that shouldn't get lost on anyone. And then, of course, then there's the top of the funnel with the candidate, taking that passive portion of your database and reactivating them. So you have a lot larger pool of active people you're in conversations with, making it easier to place people and fill those jobs. And then, of course, we have a lot going on all the way from, initially compliance or job board candidate profile intake through, interviews, both internal, external, quality assurance surveys, as well as reminders. They're going out via text. And then even helping people ramp up into their start date on assignment for people who are placing perm, really a similar flow to staying in touch with people on assignment, at least through the guarantee period. Then reminders, birthday notifications, and then redeployment, really key one. So as people are on contract, we want to get in front of them and have a really good automated engagement, helping them get replaced, because those are our, we've already invested the money and time. Those are our lowest cost placements. And then even managing people as alumni, or even going ahead and reactivating sales contacts that have gone cold. So there's a lot here. Now, one thing to note is you might be thinking to yourself, well, that sounds like a lot of content. That sounds like a lot of work. And the reality of it is we're going to help build this for you. We have templates in place mirroring what you're seeing today. So we have those templates we put in place as a starting point, and then we co-build them with you initially. So you don't have to do the work, you just tell us what you want. We co-build them with you, and then you're off the races, and we help you initiate the automation, and then of course expand it as time goes on, because you'll be trained and ready to go yourself, but you'll always also have a customer success manager assigned to you at Sense to be there as a contact to help consult as necessary. Now, I jumped into this on assignment one because I think this one is actually a pretty good example of, what almost all of our clients are utilizing. And then I can explain to you how it's structured so that hopefully I'm not going to get a chance to go through all the use cases, but if I go through this one and you see how it's all constructed, you'll in your mind be able to understand like your own use cases and the fact that Sense should be able to accomplish it. And to start with, there's really three things that go into a journey. The first one, and probably the one I think is one of the most important pieces, especially differentiation, is the audience. So we're going to start there. The second is the content. And the third is the trigger mechanism of when these are sent. So to start with the audience, this circles back to what I was saying before about why, the recruiters and salespeople don't need to be in here at all. Because what's happening is we're going to be synchronizing with Akken on a very quick basis, particularly about once an hour. And what's happening is we're listening for new data that matches this criteria, or if data doesn't match this criteria anymore, it gets pulled out. So think of this like a dynamic list. In this case, it's for assignments, so it's for placements. And we're just saying, something simple like the placement's approved, the employment type is contract to hire, and the candidate status is not archived. But do know that you can create, a rule based on any field you want, whether that's, company name, because maybe we want this only to execute for a couple of our enterprise clients because we have a little bit different flow for them than we do for our standard clients. So I could go ahead here and say for Bank of America, if I can spell, this would now only execute for Bank of America placements. But like I said, the idea is people, the recruiters will just do what they do in AkkenCloud. They'll create this placement, and then it will meet this criteria. Great, everyone gets included automatically. Then if someone calls you up 5 days before, a few days before, and says, hey, I just took a job with another company because they're going to pay me $5 more an hour, $3 more an hour, that sucks. But the key is they're going to have to adjust that and say no start in AkkenCloud, and then it will no longer match this criteria, and everyone that was getting the correspondence gets pulled out. So it's really nice, really dynamic. There's no manual feeding of anything. We just listen for however you use the system. So that was the first point, was the audience and how that works and how easy it is for the Sense system to really listen so people can just operate their day like normal. The second aspect is the content itself. So if we look at this, congratulations, we're sending one out to the candidate, to the client, or even sending things out internally to the recruiters to remind them maybe to get on the phone at some certain point, because it's nice to have automation, but we realize automation is not everything. You still need to develop that relationship and have actual conversations. So you can see there's a lot, in this case, leading up to the assignment, and then a couple of things happening on the day of when they start, and then things that are happening in follow-up. And once again, we're checking in with the client, with the manager about the candidate. We're checking in with the candidate about the manager. We're doing things like NPS scores, or 1 week onboarding quality assurance surveys, or asking for referrals. So there's a lot there. And one of the other examples might be this pre-start check-in. So in this case, 2 days before, this is just white glove treatment. We're super excited for you to start in a couple of days, and this is coming from the candidate owner. So we can make sure it's very personalized. So that's an example of using it as a text as opposed to email. So we can also go ahead and give them intro to the client. So get client information from AkkenCloud, feed that into this, and get everyone ready. Another example I might go into is the Net Promoter Score. So in this case, 1 month into the assignment, we are sending another SMS, and we're saying, hey, we take our feedback seriously, and we're asking a few questions, like how's the experience been with the recruiter, what's the reason for this rating? But then we get to the Net Promoter Score question of how likely you to refer, in this case, Blue Way Staffing, to a friend or colleague. And the thing that's key here to point out is we can branch all these interactions. So the branch is going to allow us to say, hey, if net promoter scores, if you're 7 or 8, you're neutral. If you're less than that, you're a detractor. So if you're neutral, we're just going to collect feedback. What could we have done to provide you better service? But if they're a promoter, then we give them a different response, which is like, hey, we're super excited. You've had a great experience with us. Please go post something on one of our social media outlets. And that way we can capitalize on that goodwill at that time. And, from a scheduling standpoint, 30 days out, that's great. But maybe, and this falls into the third piece of scheduling and triggering these things, maybe we want to be a little bit more precise. Maybe we want to say, hey, rather than 1 month after, let's do it so it's the second Friday after they start, because I know that's going to be their payday. So we just put them to work. They just got paid. They shouldn't be much happier than that. And that's a great time to ask for a social media review or a great time to ask for a referral. So that's a couple ways in which we can tune it, and you can see this is going off of the start date of the placement or the assignment. But we can also, if we're re-engaging people, maybe we want to send it, Monday morning at 9 a.m. if we're sending out to 10,000 people. So it's at the top of everyone's inbox, or maybe it's Friday at 4 o'clock when everyone's kind of tuned out and not working hard, but checking their email. So we can definitely tune it like any marketing tool. And then the last one is, which is really powerful, is when a field changes. So if I wanted to go ahead and maybe do this off of a status change, then I could do that and then say, when this field changes to X value, then that's going to trigger this communication URL. And of course, if you want to delay things by like an hour, so something's systematically happening, but you want to seem, like someone took some time and, crafted an email, you can delay it for an hour to make it seem more realistic. So there's a lot of flexibility, and that's just kind of scratching the surface as far as, how these things are constructed. But hopefully, based on what I'm showing you, you're seeing that from a use case perspective, there's a lot there. 2 of the other most common ones, I'm not going to dive into the details of these, but 2 of the most common ones are, passive to active, where you're trying to wake up that passive portion of your database. And in this instance, you can see this is about a 12-step drip campaign. And the thing that's really exciting about using Sense for this stuff is the fact that we're going to not only be able to do, like a quick, authentic looking email like this, but we're mixing it up. So you have that type of engagement. You have a polished email, like a marketing grade email in here as well. So we're interacting via email, and then just like that 2-day notification, you're also going to be able to send texts as part of this if you have their mobile number. And then we can even go ahead and include accurate job matches, which I'm actually going to show you a little bit about that in the next section of chatbot. But then also, chatbots themselves. So having them interact maybe to update their profile. So there's a lot of different ways to interact, and that's the variance is key, and kind of the consistency is key, because you want to touch people when they're going to be, when they're looking, and you don't know exactly when it's going to be. So that's another great use case. And the last one, and I'll hand it back to Pankaj to introduce the next step, is redeployment. And once again, I'm not going to go into this in depth, but from an actual what are we doing, saving time? We can ask, is the end date? Can we get an extension? Is it still accurate? And we can try and get that electronically. And then if we can't get it electronically or automated, then we can go ahead and remind someone internally to get on the phone and do that. But then we have other things like doing job matching, requesting someone to connect, and have a meeting to talk about how it's gone, what they're looking for in their next role, and then just keeping the firm front of mind, interview tips, resume update reminders, and then even performance reviews, referral asks, and exit surveys. So there's a lot of things that you can automate, and certainly all of this is going to feed into the analytics. And on that note, I will hand it back to Pankaj.
Thanks, Jason. I know we covered a lot of ground here really quickly, but hopefully that gave you a sense of how each one of the steps in your recruitment process can be automated. And you do this one time, it runs in the background automatically. And anytime you change any value, there is nothing that you need to do. It automatically takes care of that automation. So if somebody was about to start a week from now and they were supposed to get 10 different kinds of communication. And then 2 days before you find out that they're not starting and you remove them and you change their start date, or you take their candidate off from your ATS, or all of it automatically adjusts. There are two different questions we got in the chat, while Jason was presenting. One was, does Sense offer a VoIP option for calls? We do not. Our experience with our customers has been that less than 10% of the people, especially the millennial workforce generation, are now picking up phone calls or listening to voicemails. So our impetus is mainly on text messaging. Having said that, if you do have a VoIP solution, we probably integrate with all of them. So we have customers who use Vonage or RingCentral or Cloud Call, or just, pick your favorite. But if you have a VoIP solution, you can continue using that for voice, and we will take over the text messaging portion. The second question we got was, is this integration something our organization has to buy, or is it going to be an option for us to use in Akken daily? Well, Sense is a completely different product. So everything we are showing you right now are things that do not natively ship with Akken. So you are buying our product, not to split hairs, but you're technically not buying the integration. We do not charge for integration. If you decided that the Sense product was helpful for you, you would buy the Sense product. We will integrate with your Akken environment for free, and you will absolutely be using us daily, except that none of your recruiters, none of your salespeople, none of your marketing people will ever leave their applicant tracking system. All of this will automatically run in the background. You typically will have 1 or 2 people in your company who act as a Sense admin, who will play around with the console that you see Jason playing around with right now. So that's not something you have to train dozens or hundreds of people on. That's 1 or 2 people that we work closely with, who build all these automations, and then they keep working in the background. All right, in the interest of time, the other thing that we want to show you, this isn't available with Akken today, but coming soon, is an AI-powered chatbot. We have over 150 customers where this is live, and some amazing stories on how this has reduced time to fill by 80%, or the same exact recruiter is now screening more than 250% of the candidates that they were before. The basic idea is simple. A chatbot acts like a human being, does natural conversation, and asks the same questions that your recruiters are asking over and over again. Are you authorized to work in the US? How much money do you want? Will you subject yourself to a COVID screening? Blah, 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 blah. You'll see Jason show you that in a programmatic way, but essentially you can do this screening. So people who are coming, people who you're reaching out to, or people who are landing on your website, they can actually get a disposition pretty quickly, whether you as a company are interested in them or not. And if you are interested, they get to choose the time where they would talk to a recruiter, which means your recruiter's calendars are going to be automatically filled up with people who are automatically pre-screened. And these times were chosen by the candidates, which means 99% of the time they will actually show up. This isn't a time that was convenient for your recruiter, it was convenient for them. All while removing any kind of bias from your hiring. If there is any recruiter out in your company who has a bias against, probably don't need a female for this job, or probably don't need somebody who doesn't have this experience or has this last name or whatever, all of that goes away, because the chatbots will talk to everybody. And as long as they clear your screening criteria, they're in your recruiting process. So we will walk you through the chatbot next.
All right, thanks, Pankaj. So where I'm going to go to actually start this off is we're going to go to a website, right? So there's multiple ways in which people might be interacting with the chatbot. And first and foremost is inbound. So people come to your website and I'm just going to turn off Sense messaging real quick. So they come to your website and here we are, here I'm happy to help. And I pop that open and it's giving me some options. So, whatever's interactions happening here is completely configurable. But some of the most common are, FAQ management, like question management. So they can click help, get those answers that they want, submit a referral, or, looking for a job, right? And so we'll go through this path really quickly. Yes, I'd love to get started. And first thing we're going to do is collect that contact information. So if someone does drop off, we of course have that for follow-up. And there is going to be validation as we go ahead and enter things like phone numbers or email to make sure that there is a proper structure to them, it's a proper length and format. An example of that would be if I put in a zip code that doesn't actually exist, then it's not going to allow that to pass. In this case, I put in my right zip code. What industry am I looking at? Let's just say IT for now. What title? Developer. And the nice thing is, this is super intelligent. So, if I want, yeah, go ahead. Let's see what jobs you have for me. And based off the information I've input, right there, now it's presenting back, the top matches that are open with your organization right now. And then I can click on that to go apply. So that's an example of the inbound. Now let's talk a little bit about outbound. So one of the use cases might be to go ahead and, part of that re-engagement campaign that I was talking about. In this case, maybe we don't have their mobile number. So we're sending this via email. In this case, we're saying, hey, it's been a while, hoping you can update your profile, just answer 6 questions. So we can go ahead and provide you some great matches. And I can go ahead and click on this, and it's going to take me to the web-based chatbot, very similar to what we were looking at just a second ago. And I'm not going to go through this because it's a little repetitive, but it's going to ask them to update pieces of the profile. And the nice thing about this is we can target, the people who are missing data points. Like if they're missing a zip code, because then it makes it tough for radius searching, or if they're missing their mobile number, we can target those people and try and get that information. Now, the next example, though, I want to bring into play here is the, pre-screen. And we're actually starting right down here. Thanks for applying. My name is Riva from Blue Way Staffing. Just have a few quick questions. Are you ready to get started? And I'll say, sure. And this one, of course, is going out SMS, which is definitely a benefit because people are much quicker to react to the SMS chatbot than they are to email. So quick introduction should only take a few minutes. First question, do you have a bachelor's degree? I do. And then the last piece, if this had been triggered for real, rather than me sending a test, there would be a link to the web-based chatbot if they wanted to continue via that experience. And in this case, I'm going to say, yep, I'm going to specialize in development. And of course, there's branching going on in the background. So because I said development, it's asking me if I'm certified with agile methodology. And maybe I'll just say yes, answer with an emoji. Right? So the nice thing here is not only do we have natural language processing, but you can even answer with emojis, and we're going to understand that disposition. So I'm going to say I have 5 years experience. I'm a veteran. Am I currently equipped to work from home? Sure. And great news. When would I be available to start work? I'm just going to say ASAP. I could have put in next week, a month from now, or an actual date. And the system's going to understand that. The last thing here before it's going to make a decision is it allows me to check my work, right? So if I fat fingered something because I was riding on a bus, maybe clicked something wrong, I can always go back and edit it to make sure it's correct, because we want to make sure we allow people to correct things. Otherwise, we don't want to negatively disposition them from a possible opportunity because they fat fingered something. So now what's happened is in the background, made the decision, said I'm a good fit. Fantastic. Now it's saying, let's schedule some time to make sure that, finalize some details, make sure that I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And this is either pulling a singular recruiter's calendar or a group of recruiters' availability, up to you how you configure it. But the candidate can now go in, click a time, and confirm. And the thing that's super nice about this is, if you're using something free like Calendly, it's typically going to prompt them for their contact information again, and things like that. But we obviously have the context, so we don't. So all we did was present them some time, so just click it, and then the appointment itself has been scheduled, and the appointment invitation went out to the recruiter and to the candidate. And if I go back into my messaging, you can see here, super excited for, I went into the wrong one. There we go. You can see here, says, looks like you're a great fit. And then there was a scheduling link, but now I've scheduled it. And it says, we're very excited to connect with you. And then we're collecting a little feedback here. Because anytime you have autonomous communication, it's super important we monitor that from a satisfaction level, as well as completion rate, and if people are dropping off of a certain area. So those are a couple of quick examples of going through and using the chatbot from candidate experience, but just to highlight for a second how easy it is If I go down to the conversations area, I'm going to say how easy it is to create these and manage these. I'll go into a IT pre-screen and show you, it's just workflow diagram. So no code necessary. And any place you see, estimated time automatically comes in, undergraduate degree, these were the questions that were asked. And any place, eventually we get down to the summary and then final evaluation. Any place you see a little plus here, you can just drop in a question, add a message, jump to another area in the conversation. Or I can go ahead and, add in that meeting request, or possibly add in job matches. Really, we can do anything you want here when it comes to, creating the structure yourself. And then of course we have, the ideas of sending notifications out before the thank you, scheduling the interview, and then, start the availability to start. So there's a lot here. Obviously I could go through this aspect in depth, but hopefully you get the idea. It's no code necessary, super easy to do. And if you need to modify anything, you can. And when you're ready to make it live, you just click build, 10 to 15 minutes, it's ready to go. So on that, hopefully that was a quick little introduction. I'm going to hand it back to Pankaj to talk a little bit about data intelligence.
Thanks, Jason. I did want to cover in the meanwhile, we got another sort of question, and this is very important to clarify. The question I got was, you said that typically 1 or 2 people have Sense instead of everyone on the team. Does that mean that everyone needs to share a login when they want to use the text features? Or is everyone able to access it from their own login? So sorry, just to clarify, I was specifically talking about the Sense Engage product, which is where you build all of these automations. So the automations are typically being built by a couple of people in your company. One person who is in the marketing department, who is usually responsible for content, your tone of voice, your brand, your logo, your colors, and one person who's typically in operations or sales or account management, who basically knows, hey, these are the kind of questions we ask people who work at Chevron versus people who work at Google. So maybe somebody who knows those differences. As far as messaging is concerned, every single person in your company who you want, whether it is a recruiter, a salesperson, an account manager, an accountant, an executive, they will have their own personal text messaging number. That's a Chrome extension like Jason showed you that will overlay on top of AkkenCloud. So all of that will have, or you will have that completely separately. I simply meant admin logins into the Sense Engage platform. And in the interest of time, so our last section here is data intelligence. To be honest, Jason and I can talk about this for an hour, but we're going to try and do a quick short version for all of you on this. I think you will find this really interesting because the idea is, what's the kind of data that we can gather from your own applicant tracking system and show you. This is exactly the kind of stuff that CEOs are looking for. This is exactly the kind of stuff that helps you make decisions. We don't have too many pending questions. I just got another one that I will answer in the chat. So Jason will take the entire 5 minutes and go all the way up to maybe a minute before the top of the hour to show people data intelligence, and then we'll wrap from there.
Sounds good. Thanks for handing it back. And I'm going to go into the analytics section here. And, as Pankaj said, this is what management and the executives, they want to see, right? Any engagement platform or communication platform that you have, you expect to know what's the delivery rate, what's the open rate. And, this is even another simple metric. What's conversion summary? Conversion summary is, well, with Sense, you're interacting in a lot of different ways. You have surveys, you have chatbots, are those getting completed? You're sending out emails with links. Are you driving your traffic to the right landing pages? Emails without links, are they getting opened in SMS automation? Are people actually replying to those SMSs? So you get it all kind of distilled down to one metric, but then of course you can see them all separately as well, including the bad, right? Things are like bounces or unsubscribed spam reports, and even skipped, because we didn't really get into it, but there's intelligent settings, of where we might be suppressing things on purpose so we don't seem robotic. And then of course, a visualization of the data. And right now, what I'm showing you is the whole organization, everything all at once. And, I'm not going to say that's not useful. but it's certainly a lot more useful if you can dive down and hone that data. And one of the things that I always like to point out is the filters. So if I want to get to a certain data set, the one thing that Sense is really good at is every single field that we're integrating with AkkenCloud or we're synchronizing with AkkenCloud can appear here as a filter. So you're not stuck with a couple of standard filters. You have every single field in the entire Akken integration that is going to be available here. So the data set's always yours. And we're also looking at this at the top level. But of course, I'm going to want to dive down. If I scroll down here, I'm going to want to dive down and see, okay, well, how am I doing against this campaign or this journey? In this case, we're going into the on assignment journey that I started with. And I can see exactly how we performed there. Or maybe I want to go all the way down into a singular piece of communication, like this 1 week survey. And I go into this one because I find it's hugely beneficial to be able to analyze the data, especially when you're sending out surveys. So, and we'll get to MPS as a separate entity in a second. But if I look at this one, I can see how we've done, but then I can look at the summary and I can start to see, oh, how our candidates are responding after that first week of, onboarding. And this is huge because what our clients will do is for their QBRs that they do with their clients, they'll go ahead and they'll use the filters and they'll filter down on that client. And then they'll be able to all of a sudden be consultative because now they have all this feedback. They're collecting data on day 1, day 7, day 30, and they can start to see like if certain managers are bad, if maybe the laptops that this company were issuing to people were 5 years old and they're just really bad, creating a bad experience, or the office is disruptive, or whatever the case is. They collect all this feedback, and then so we as the staffing company can go back and be consultative and be like, hey, this is what's going on the ground. Not sure if you're aware of that. And I can't tell you how many times, our clients have come to us and said, this has been amazing because we increased our business. We've been made the primary vendor, whatever the case is, because they were able to communicate all this information succinctly to them rather than it being lost in a recruiter's inbox or on the phone somewhere. So moral of that story was deep dive. And then to make sure we can finish, I'm just going to cruise through some of the rest of this. Of course, we have all the responses, the flagged responses, under a certain threshold or keywords like discrimination. We raise that up here, but of course, people are notified at that time to go ahead and take action. Then, of course, the chatbot metrics we talked about, chatbot transcripts, the two-way messaging. So this is, of course, a volume thing, but then also, how many are actual conversations, or what's our average response time? Because if it's too high, like 19 minutes, that's unsatisfactory for the candidate. And then, of course, net promoter score, we're tracking that both from a company and candidate perspective. And then the last piece here I'll show is the ROI, the analytics. So in this case, yes, Sense is actually telling you how much we're helping you, how many people are reaching out to, or how many placements were directly influenced by us resourcing that person or having a long stream engagement to help facilitate that placement, or how much time we're saving your internal employees, in weeks, months, or years, based on the fact that you send a text, you send an email, it's probably gonna take you a minute or two. So we just aggregate that over all the communications we're automating. And then we get something really nice too, like, hey, how are you doing with your redeployment percentage? So we're visualizing data in ways that you're probably not used to. In this case, in December, we can see 30 active first-time placements, but then 25 were redeployments. So we're at 45%. And are we increasing that as time goes on, or is it decreasing? Because the redeployments are super cheap compared to new placements. And then,
Jason, I'm sorry. In time, we're
All
at the last 30 seconds. So what I'll encourage everybody who is interested in analytics is please reach out to us. We can show you a ton of stuff that Jason is showing you here is the kind of information that your CEO is probably looking for, and it is probably hard to find today. That's the big takeaway. And as our last slide, I will just leave you guys with this visual of everything that Sense does today. From start to finish, from your entire candidate life cycle. You're going to get this slide, so don't worry about screenshotting this or what have you. On the left hand side are all of our products. We walked you through some of them today, and on the right hand side you see the entire candidate life cycle. Thank you again, everybody, for spending the time with us. On our next slide, you have my and Jason's email addresses, as well as an email address to contact Akken. So if you have questions for Akken, please go ahead and do that. If you have questions for John, he's on the call. You guys know probably how to find him. But if you have specific questions for Jason and I, you can reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to show you the product in more detail and actually answer specific questions based on your own environment. Thank you again for making the time. Thank you, John. Jason, thank you as always.
Thank you, Jason. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Pankaj.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.